Hi all, this is Erica, aka ECR Horses 1901, and we're returning to our normal content today. It is the next in our So You're an F-Tier Breyer model horse series, and we are going to focus on Touch of Class. Touch of Class was a thoroughbred mare who is best known as a show jumper, but actually began her life on the racetrack. Her jockey club name was Still a Spill, yep. And she had 6 starts, but wasn't exactly successful. With racing out of the cards, she was also started as a hunter, but that also didn't suit the mare. She was passed around from owner to owner because she was quite hot. Joe Fargus, who would soon become synonymous with Touch of Class, was actually looking for a mount for a junior rider who was training with him, and they ended up trying the mare, who would become known around the barn as Kitty. Well, Kitty did not pass the pre-purchase exam, but Fargus saw something special in the mare, and actually, and this is quoting one of my sources, which I will put in the description, convened a syndicate in order to be able to purchase her. By 1982, Fargus and Kitty were competing at the Grand Prix level. Now, another couple of things to know about the mare was that she was somewhat small, at just 16 hands high, and very fine-boned. Joe Fargus was 6'2", so they didn't look like a great match, but something between them just clicked. So well, in fact, that they ended up on the 1984 Olympic show jumping team. They came away with both team and individual gold medals, thus cementing their place in show jumping history. In fact, Touch of Class was named the first non-human US Olympic Committee female equestrian athlete of the year. After the Olympics, they went on to win 6 major Grand Prix, placed second or third in another 14, and were on 6 different medal-winning national teams. Unfortunately, in 1988, she pulled a check ligament and was retired, becoming a broodmare. One notable foal of hers was United Touch S, who did well with Richard Vogel of Germany. In the year 2000, she was inducted into the Show Jumping Hall of Fame, and she passed away in 2001. Given Kitty's notability at the '84 Olympics, it's not surprising that the Breyer mold appeared soon after, in 1986. Yes, her most outstanding feature here is indeed that swan-like neck, and there is some other 1980s funkiness going on, but the neck is by far the most egregious aspect. The thing is, if you look at the picture that likely inspired Chris Hess, or one of the pictures anyway, you might be able to understand how this came to be. Because one thing I have noticed, now that I have one of the models on this mold, is that if you're not looking at it directly from the side, you can angle it. This does a pretty good job here, so that her neck does not look quite as long. Otherwise, the matte bay colorway is fine, and there really isn't anything obnoxious about this model. Breyer was quick to move on though, as the regular run only lasted through 1988. The mold reappeared as a 1989 through 1990 regular run, the matte black thoroughbred mare. Again, she's very much a product of the era, with not much detail to that black coat, and in my opinion, there's not really much to discuss here. I was collecting at this time, and she didn't stand out to me then, and doesn't stand out to me now. Let's move on. In 1990, the Touch of Class mold was used for 2 separate BreyerFest live auction lots. The very first BreyerFest, mind you. Both lots are simply described as Chestnut Touch of Class, a colorway that this mold hadn't appeared with yet. And unfortunately, we do not have a picture of either one. Were they the same, or did they have slight differences? We will never know. In any case, one sold for $220 and the other sold for $225. Well, there was no rest for Touch of Class, because in 1991, she returned as the regular run Selle Francais, described as having a slightly semi-gloss shaded liver chestnut with 4 white stockings. This is the model that I have, we'll see her later, and I don't personally see the semi-gloss, but this is a flattering color on her. It's still not exactly detailed, but better somehow. This regular run ended in 1992. A mere year later, she came back as the 1993 through 1994 regular run, Guinevere, English Hack, a slightly semi-gloss red bay. The back-to-back releases are interesting to me. I'm not sure if it's a sign that the mold was popular or not. It's as if they were trying different colorways to see what would stick. This is actually my favorite colorway on this mold, and I think if there were just a little hint of white markings, that it could be improved even more. Her popularity continued into 1993's BreyerFest, in which she was used as 2 more BreyerFest live auction lots. One is described as discontinued touch of class, boxed, and the other was test color light dappled gray. Perhaps a hint of things to come. Unfortunately, we do not have pictures nor prices for this year, so we cannot gauge the relative quality or popularity of either. After a brief respite from 1994 through 1995, the mold was again brought out for 1995's BreyerFest as a live auction lot, and if you zoom in, you may be able to see a Rabicano Roan touch of class. The picture we have of this model is not great, but we do know that she sold for $875. That was on the higher end of selling prices that year, although there were several that went above $1,000, so all things considered, not bad. 1996, and we were back with the next regular run, Rox Dean. I love this real-life horse. She was a very famous hunter champion during this time, and just a beautiful horse. I couldn't even settle on a single picture out of these options just from a simple Google image search, so pretty much all of the gray horses that you see on this page are her. And look at that jumping form. That was her shape over every single jump. I swear. And this picture here, I know, was one of the early pics that I saved on my computer. It's still in there. It's still in my files because it's perfect. It's a perfect hunter picture. And she was at that just right stage in her fading, in her coat growing a little bit lighter that is just so nice on dappled gray horses. Anyway, this model was made for her, and it's not my favorite. She looks more dirty than dappled, in my opinion. It is probably the best that they could do around this era, however. This regular run lasted through 1998. In between those years, in 1997, Touch of Class was part of a 3-piece horse set for the JCPenney holiday catalog, with between 3,000 and 6,000 made. She was a matte shaded white gray, that's how they chose to describe this colorway, along with a matte bay Secretariat on the left, and a matte dark bay Tobiano sham right there in the middle. When you look at the group all together, I could see this being popular at the time. Secretariat might look a bit cursed from this angle, but I would probably still take that sham. Touch of Class was a BreyerFest live auction lot for the final time in 1999 as a Chestnut Eros prototype. And what's interesting here is that Breyer did eventually make a model of Eros, the horse Ann Kursinski rode at the '96 Olympics. It's just that they decided to go with the Farlap mold instead. I wish we had a picture of this Touch of Class, but sadly we do not. She sold for $700, which was pretty mid that year. 1999 was also, to this date, the final special run for Touch of Class. She was Century Finale, a matte chestnut Tobiano State Line tack model, with an SLT brand on her near side hip. Honestly, and perhaps surprisingly, I don't hate this colorway on her. But moving swiftly along. From 2000 to 2002, she appeared as the regular run Miss Resistance Free, a semi-gloss black model. This is honestly pretty close to her second regular run, if you remember that thoroughbred mare, except this time we have striped hooves and a white lip marking, and not much else to say here. it's fine. After a couple years of rest, she reappeared as the 2005 to 2007 regular run Sonia Dor, matte chestnut with a yellow flower blanket. Apparently this was tied into a movie called Dreamer, which is what Sonia Dor means. The movie was from 2005, starring Kurt Russell and Dakota Fanning. I was not a big movie person at the time, so I definitely do not remember this being a thing. Apparently it was inspired by the true story of Mariah Storm, a thoroughbred who fractured her cannon bone, but somehow made a full recovery, and went on to continue winning races. This movie did recoup its budget, if barely, and as of today, it has a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, so people find it, or found it anyway, to be a pretty decent film. One top comment on Letterboxd claimed best horse girl film, and it's not even close. The part where the kid shares a popsicle with their horse is so real, lol. I will not be watching it, however. Sorry. There are some limits to what I will do for this channel. Anyway, I like the chestnut. I just wish there was an ounce of shading. I guess there's some shading, so scratch that. I don't know, the color's fine. And I appreciate the side-eye. I do love a model giving some side-eye. Moving on. Almost a decade later, Touch of Class appeared for the final time thus far in 2015 as the regular run Let's Go Riding series in a light chestnut. Honestly, the model itself is not bad. The more modern paint job does do this mold some favors. And as I've said with other molds in the past, it makes perfect sense to use ones that aren't going to appeal to collectors as much, and to take those and use them in playsets that are meant for kids. In any case, this set was retired in 2017, and that is it. So I bought the Selle Francais model on this mold, and there's kind of a story here. This horse has been for sale along with a few other Breyers at one of the antique stores in my rotation for probably a year at this point. But in the beginning, she and the other horses in this person's lot were way overpriced. They are all vintagey regular runs, first of all, and none are in particularly great condition. There are enough scratches and shiny marks here that she's honestly just a little above body quality condition. Well, in more recent months, I noticed that the prices on these Breyers started to come down. Maybe the vendor finally realized that they had them priced a bit too high to begin with. I don't know. And I did have a price in mind where I told myself, if she ever ends up at X number of dollars, then yeah, I'll buy her. It was still kind of not a lot monetarily, but a lot given her condition. But I knew I needed one of these guys for my video, and in the long run, again, not that much money. Well, one day, we were at the antique store, and surprise, she was finally down to the dollar amount that I was willing to spend. So, I brought her home, cleaned her up, and here she is. And what I realized having this model around is that I do not hate it. She's very Balanchine ballerina coated. Think Suzanne Farrell. I'll put a picture on the screen. I'm probably talking to just me at this point anyway. But I mean that. Yes, the neck is too long, but she is a dainty model, and it fits the description of the real-life Touch of Class, so I can't be mad about that. Strapless, who appeared in 2003, feels like a spiritual cousin to her. And also, in my opinion, is why this mold has only been used twice since Strapless came on the scene. So what is the verdict? This was a tough decision. I actually had to pull up my full final tier ranking list to see what models I have in C versus D tier. And first of all, can I please say that back then I made some seriously questionable choices? Like, I put the Andalusian full. in detail. What was I thinking? In the end, I am going to give Touch of Class some benefit of the doubt points for being vintage and for being true to the spirit of the real-life horse, and I am happy to say that she is no longer an F-tier mold. In fact, Touch of Class will now live as a C-. C for congratulations. Well, that's all for today. I actually have a live show next weekend. Well, no, not next weekend because that's Thanksgiving, but the first weekend in December. So my next video will be all about that. And then, hard to believe, but it is probably going to be time for a year in review. I have a lot of interesting comments about this past year in the hobby, and even more interesting things to say about my plans for 2026. But that's for another time. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to your comments below, and I will see you next time.